Well, welcome everyone to this presentation hosted by the Canadian Theosophical Association. I'm your host, Jennifer Hay. The aim of these webinars is to provide information that encourages open-minded exploration and the opportunity to engage with presenters like Mairi today on the topics of theosophy, science, art, and world religions. Most of all, we promote self-transformation and realizing the unity of life. I'm assuming you're all members of, at least, if not of the CTA, of a Theosophical group somewhere. So unless you have any questions about that, I'll proceed to a description of today's presentation, which is called the Etheric Double, Parent of the Human Body. Do all of you know Mairi from before? Because some of you were here last time. If not, I'll just give you a brief bio. She's been studying the writings of the TS founders and practicing Theosophy since 2019. She attends weekly study groups on the secret doctrine and non-duality. She's an active board member of the CTA, coordinates speakers for English language national webinar presentations such as this one, and designs the monthly CTA newsletter. Mairi is the secretary and president of the Kamloops Theosophical Study Group, which meets twice monthly, and she posts regularly on Theosopher's Stone on Facebook. So without further ado, I will turn the floor over to you, Mairi, and we're looking forward to hearing all about the Etheric Double today.
Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome everyone. Good to see everyone here today. Yes, so let me just go into share mode here and shove this over a bit. Okay, so the work that I extracted this presentation from is a book called The Etheric Double by Arthur Edward Powell. He was born in 1882 and died in 1969. He was a Welsh theosophist and he published during the early 1900s and extracted a lot of his works from the clairvoyant studies of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Annie Ledbetter, or sorry, Annie Besant, and Charles Leadbeater. So we'll just dive in here. The etheric double or body is distinct from the physical body and the aura. It is a vehicle of prana, and we'll get into prana a bit later. Every solid, liquid, and gaseous particle of the physical body is surrounded with an etheric envelope, hence the etheric double, as its name implies, and it's a perfect duplicate of the dense form. In size, it projects about 1/4 of an inch beyond the skin. The etheric aura, however, or the health aura, as it is frequently called, projects normally several inches beyond the skin. So you can see in this little diagram, this little line here represents the etheric double and a very well-evolved aura. In appearance, the etheric double is pale violet gray or blue-gray, and it's faintly luminous, and it's coarse or fine in texture, according to the dense physical body is coarse or fine. The etheric double has two main functions. Firstly, it absorbs prana or vitality and distributes this to the whole body via the chakras. Secondly, it acts as an intermediary or a bridge between the dense physical body and the astral body, transmitting the consciousness of physical sense contacts through the etheric brain, and it's not a real brain, it's just a term that he used, through the etheric brain to the astral body, and also transmitting consciousness from the astral and higher levels down into the physical brain and nervous system. So as you can see in this little diagram, there's this cycle of information and energy that passes between the astral body through the etheric body or double into the physical body. And if we did not have this etheric rind, as it appears to us here, there wouldn't be contact. It is important to recognize that the etheric double, being merely a part of the physical body, is not normally capable of acting as a separate vehicle of consciousness in which a man can live or function. It has only a diffused consciousness belonging to its parts and has no mentality at all, nor does it readily serve as a medium of mentality when disjoined from the dense counterpart. And I should pause here. I forgot to say, feel free to ask questions at any point or comment. You can raise your hand in the chat. And Jennifer, if you can monitor that because I can't see it, or just interrupt me, that's fine. As it is a vehicle not of mental consciousness, but of prana or vitality, its dislocation from the dense particles to which it conveys the life currents is disturbing and unhealthy. So anytime there's this break or too much distance between the etheric double and the physical body, there's this disturbance or lack of health can result as a result of that. In normal, healthy persons, in fact, the separation of the etheric double from the dense body is a matter of difficulty, and the double is unable to move away from the body to which it belongs. The etheric double may be separated from the dense physical body by an accident, death, anesthetics, or mesmerism. The etheric double being the connecting link between the brain and the higher consciousness. The forcible extrusion of it from the dense physical body by anesthetics necessarily produces anesthesia. Now, I don't know if any of you have had surgery and you've been completely anesthetized. I know from my experience, it feels like no time passes between the time you're put out and the time you awake. And the explanation for that is next. Further than this, the etheric body, thus forced out, usually wraps itself around the astral body and dulls the consciousness of that vehicle also. Hence, after the effect of anesthetics have worn off, there's usually no memory in the brain of consciousness of the time spent in the astral vehicle. It must also be borne in mind that etheric matter, though invisible to ordinary sight, is still purely physical and can therefore be affected by cold and heat and powerful acids. Persons who have lost a limb by amputation sometimes complain that they feel pain at the extremities of the amputated limb, i.e., at the place where the limb used to be. Sorry, somebody's just come in here. This is due to the fact that the etheric portion of the limb is not removed from the dense physical portion, but can still be seen in its place by clairvoyant sight. And therefore, under suitable stimulus, sensations can be aroused in this etheric limb and transmitted to consciousness. Go
Mary,
ahead. Yes.
can I finish with something? One postulate is that the etheric double is really made out of plasma, which is the fourth state of matter, and wasn't really known back then. And it seems to have all the properties that the etheric double is supposed to have. So you could think of it as your physical matter material body being coated by this plasma, not only externally but internal organs are also surrounded by plasma, just like the internal organs are surrounded by etheric matter.
Right. And that relates to at the start where it said every atom is wrapped in this.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed. I didn't know that. Thank you. What I wanted to say about this part about the lost limb amputation is My brother is an amputee, and I've not asked him if he has felt pain, but I've asked him if when if he dreams that he still has his hand. And he said, I did for years. He did dream still having his hand, but then someone asked him about that. He asked the same question. And after that, his dreams, he's in his dreams, he's an amputee. So it's an interesting because it's on the astral, right? The astral where we dream, and it's the astral that's communicating with the body through the etheric. And for whatever reason, the way it gelled in his mind when that question was asked, it's like an awakening of some sort. And in terms of this, feeling where something's been gone, like I have a couple of teeth that are gone out of this side, and sometimes I still feel an ache there every once in a while, and there's no tooth there at all. So there it is. Yes, Deborah.
That would kind of fit with what I've read within the tradition of Theosophy, that they try to do scientific experiments on different aspects of what Madame Blavatsky did, and well as other kind of mystical type things, and that it never works. And I heard, I think it was Pablo had said that there's some aspect about it that it's just not on demand to the material world. And once the material world makes that demand, I'm probably not saying it quite the way he did, but it was just really interesting that, to just repeat it. So it would kind of fit with that once the material world was aware of this oddity, it retreated a little bit over.
Thank you. What's going on here? Okay, now we get into prana. Prana is a vital force, the existence of which is not yet formally recognized by orthodox Western scientists. Now remember, this was written in 1929, though probably a few of them suspect it. Prana is a Sanskrit word derived from pra, forth, and an, to breathe, move, live. Thus, praan, prana, means to breathe forth life breath or life energy, being the nearest English equivalents. Hence, life on each plane may be spoken of as the prana of the plane, prana becoming the life breath in every creature, the totality of the life forces. Prana on the physical plane is best described as vitality, as the integrating energy that coordinates the physical molecules, its cells, etc., and holds them together as a definite organism. Prana links up and connects these into one complex whole. Were it not for the presence of prana, there could be no physical body as an integral whole, working as one entity. Without prana, the body would be nothing more than a collection of independent cells. Prana is absorbed by all living organisms. It is not, therefore, in any sense a product of life, but the living animal, plant, etc., are its products. Too great an exuberance of it in the nervous system may lead to disease and death, just as too little leads to exhaustion and untimely death. H.P. Blavatsky compares prana, the active power producing all vital phenomena, to oxygen, the supporter of combustion, the life-living gas, the active chemical agent in all organic life. Feeling.
So
Yep.
just in Chinese terms, it's known as qi, and in Japanese, it's ki.
In
So it's
Japanese, it's
ki,
ki.
ki, like in Reiki.
Okay.
So that's the equivalent in those systems.
Thank you. Feeling in the body. Although nerves are in the physical body, it is not the physical body as such which has the power of feeling. As a sheath, the physical body does not feel. It is a receiver of impressions only. The outer physical body receives the impact, but in its own cells do not lie the power of feeling pleasure or pain, except in a very vague, dull, and massive way, giving rise to vague, diffused feelings, such as those of general fatigue, for example. The physical contacts are transmitted inwards by the prana, and these are acute, sharp, keen, specific, quite different from the heavy, diffuse sensations deriving from the cells themselves. It is thus in every case prana which gives the sense activity to the physical organs and which transmits the outer vibration to the sense centers, which are situated in the astral body. It is by means of the etheric double that prana runs along the nerves of the body and thus enables them to act not only as the carriers of external impacts, but also of motor force originated from within. The particles of the dense physical body are constantly changing and being replaced by fresh particles derived from food, water, and air. So are the particles of the etheric body being constantly changed and replaced by fresh etheric particles. These being taken into the body along with the food eaten, with the air breathed, and with prana in the form known as the vitality globule. And this image, I believe, it's in Powell's book, but I think it was taken from Leadbeater's book. Prana or vitality in the lowest physical plane is quite separate and distinct from light, heat, etc. But nevertheless, its manifestation on the physical plane appears to depend upon sunlight. For when sunlight is abundant, prana also appears in abundance. And where sunlight is absent, prana is also deficient. Prana emanates from the sun and enters some of the ultimate physical atoms which float about in the Earth's atmosphere in countless myriads. So on the right here is a little painting I did as I was studying this over the years, and I was seeing prana, which all of us, most all of us can see this, or these are actually vitality globules we're seeing. I made this little painting to try to represent it, and I sent it to Pablo to ask him, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing here? Which he affirmed. So you kind of put your eyes into daydream mode when you look at a clear blue sky. And if you see these little dancing sparks, and they sort of look like little worms because they trail light behind them. And so the main part would be here, would be very, very bright, clear and bright. And then it moves very quickly, and they're all moving all at the same time. Now, my image probably looks a little ugly, but anyways, I think it gets the point across. So these globules, on account of their brilliance and extreme activity, can be seen by almost anyone who cares to look, darting about in the atmosphere in immense numbers, especially on a sunny day. The best way to see them is to face directly away from the sun and focus the eyes a few feet away with a clear sky as background. Brilliant as is the globule, it is almost colorless and may be compared to white light. In cloudy weather, there is great diminution of the number of globules formed, and during the night, the operation appears to be entirely suspended. During the night, therefore, we may be said to be living upon the stock manufactured during the previous day. And although it appears practically impossible that it should ever be entirely exhausted, that stock evidently does run low when there is a long succession of cloudy days. And that could account for SAD, that seasonal affective disorder that some people experience just from lack of sunlight, We get that a lot in Vancouver and other northern countries. It is, of course, the work of the physical elemental, a formless, semi-conscious life force that inhabits and animates the physical body to defend the body and to assimilate vitality in order to recuperate the physical body. Whilst the physical body is awake, the nerves and muscles are kept tense, ready for instant action. When the body is asleep, the elemental lets the nerves and muscles relax and devotes himself especially to the assimilation of vitality. This accounts for the strong recuperative power of sleep, even of a momentary nap. The elemental works most successfully during the early part of the night, when there is a copious supply of vitality. In the daily cycle, the supply of globules is at its lowest ebb in the small hours of the morning, before sunrise, and this is one reason why so large a proportion of deaths occur during those hours. Hence, also the saying that an hour's sleep before midnight is worth 2 after it. Similarly, of course, the supply of prana is at a lower ebb in winter than in summer. Further, prana is poured forth not only on the physical, but also on all planes. Emotion, intellect, and spirituality will be at their best under clear skies and when with the inestimable aid of sunlight. The chakras. In the etheric double, as well as in each of our other vehicles, there is a certain force center. There are certain force centers, or chakras, as they are called in Sanskrit. This word meaning literally a wheel or revolving disc. The chakras are situated on the surface of the double. And as I understand it, there are like 3 layers of chakras. I'm not an expert on chakras, but that there's in the body, there's on the etheric, and there's also in the astral, as I understand. The chakras are situated on the surface of the double. That is about 1/4 of an inch outside the skin of the body. To clairvoyant sight, they appear as vortices or saucer-like depressions of rapidly rotating matter. The force flowing through the chakras being essential to the life of the etheric double, everyone possesses such life forces, though the degree of their development varies considerably in individuals. Where they are undeveloped, they glow dully, and the etheric particles move sluggishly, just forming the vortex necessary for the transmission of the force, and no more. In developed people, on the other hand, the chakras glow and pulsate, blazing with blinding brilliance like miniature suns. They vary in size from about 2 inches in diameter to about 6 inches. The etheric chakras have 2 distinct functions. One is to absorb and distribute prana or vitality to the etheric and thence to the physical body, thus keeping these alive. And the second is to bring down into the physical consciousness whatever may be the quality inherent in the corresponding astral center. It is the lack of development of etheric centers which accounts for the failure to bring into the physical brain memory of astral experiences or dreams. Many people are fully awake and vividly conscious on the astral plane and lead active lives in their astral bodies. When, however, they return to their sleeping physical bodies, scarcely any memory of the astral life filters through into the brain, simply because the necessary etheric bridge is not built. When the etheric centers are fully developed, there is full and continuous memory of astral experiences in the brain. So at this time, as I understand, like at the time this stuff was written, more people were less educated and so not as evolved. But today, it's very common for people to have quite complete dream memory. And so these centers are functioning. that it indicates that these centers are functioning. The development of the spleen center enables man to remember his astral journeys, though sometimes only very partially. The faculty associated with the corresponding astral center being that of traveling consciously in the astral body. Those vague memories that most of us have of blissful flights through the air are often due to slight accidental stimulation of the spleen chakra. So I interpret that as, when you have dreams of flying. I don't know what any of you think about that, but that's how it read to me. When we have those dreams of flying, that the spleen has been stimulated. How vitality and energy enters the body. The prana rushes into the center of each chakra from a direction at right angles to the plane of the chakra, welling up as the force comes from the astral plane to the etheric. So if you look at me for a second, if the chakra is oriented this way and the body's here, that energy is coming in at 90 degrees like this. And then it says it radiates at 90 at right angles too. So then it's going out like this way. So from the center of the chakra, the force then radiates at right angles to the direction from which it came, in a number of directions and in straight lines, which are similar to the spokes of the wheel. So they've illustrated it here, but they can't make this look like it's 90 degrees because it would be coming straight on from us, the viewer. The spleen. The spleen center has 6 spokes and therefore the same number of petals or undulations. In appearance, it is especially radiant, glowing, and sun-like. This center is unique in this, that it has the all-important function of absorbing the vitality globules from the atmosphere, disintegrating them, and distributing the component atoms charged with the specialized and transmuted prana to the various parts of the body. So I question, some people don't have their spleens. So I guess the chakras in general can absorb these vitality globules.
The spleen chakra remains even without the spleen.
Oh, so it doesn't even need the organ to pass it through. Okay. Thank you, Ed. Maybe you should be giving this presentation. The vitality globules are first drawn into the spleen center. Then they are broken up into 7 component atoms, each atom charged with one of the 7 varieties of prana. And these atoms are then caught up by the rotating secondary forces and spun round the chakra. The 7 kinds of prana are colored thus: violet, blue, green, yellow, orange, dark red, and rose red. It will be observed that the color divisions that we just mentioned are not exactly those to which we are accustomed in the solar spectrum, but resemble rather the arrangement of colors seen on higher levels in the causal, mental, and astral bodies. The indigo spectrum is divided between the violet and blue rays of prana, whilst the red spectrum is split up into dark red and rose red prana. Each of the 6 spokes then seizes on one variety of atom and dispatches it to the chakra or part of the body for which it is needed. This accounts for 6 kinds of atoms only. The 7th variety, that the rose pink color, is dispatched through the hub or center of the spleen chakra itself, whence it is distributed over the whole nervous system. The atoms which bear the rose-colored prana are clearly the life of the nervous system, and it is this variety of prana which one man may give to another. If the nerves are insufficiently supplied with this rose-colored prana, they become sensitive and intensely irritable. The person finds himself restless, and the least noise or touch is agony to him. Instant relief may be afforded him by some healthy person flooding his nervous system with a supply of rose-colored prana. Now, this image on the right is showing a highly evolved being and their aura, but I used it because it seemed to relate best to what's about to be read. In a man in vigorous health, the spleen does its work so generously that considerably more of the particles charged with prana are present than the man requires for his own use. These unused particles are discharged from the body in all directions through the health aura, along with the particles from which the prana has been extracted. Such a man is thus a source of health and strength to those around him, constantly, though unconsciously, shedding vitality on any who may be in his vicinity. This process may be considered intensified by those who definitely set themselves to heal others by mesmeric passes and otherwise. A man, on the other hand, who is unable for any reason to specialize his own use a sufficient amount of prana, frequently and also unconsciously acts as a sponge, his physical elemental drawing vitality from any sensitive person who happens to be near, to his own temporary benefit, but often to the serious injury of the victim. This phenomenon largely accounts for those feelings of weariness and languor which come over one after being near people, not being very strong themselves, possess this unfortunate vampire-like faculty of draining others of vitality. I don't know about you, but I've certainly experienced this. Certain people boost you, and other people drain. The health aura, consisting of these particles ejected from the body, serves the useful purpose of protecting the man from the invasion of disease germs. In health, the particles are thrown out through the pores in straight lines at right angles to the surface of the body, giving to the health aura a striated effect. As long as the lines remain firm and straight, the body seems to be almost entirely protected from the attack of evil physical influences such as disease germs, the germs being actually repelled and carried away by the outrush of pranic force. So I think healthcare workers must have an abundance of this kind of energy and the kind of thoughts that generate this energy. But when on account of weakness, over fatigue, a wound, depression of spirits, or through the excess of an irregular life, an unusually large amount of prana is required to repair waste or damage within the body. And there is consequently a serious decrease in the quantity radiated. The lines of the health aura droop, become erratic and confused. The system of defense is weakened, and it is then comparatively easy for deadly germs to effect an entrance. It may be mentioned in passing that the astral center corresponding to the spleen also has the function of vitalizing the whole astral body. Protection. Both etheric matter and prana are very readily amenable to the human will. It is possible, therefore, to protect oneself to a considerable extent from hostile influences mentioned above by making an effort of the will to check the radiation of vitality at the outer extremity of the health aura, building it there into a wall or shell which will be impervious to disease germs and also prevent the vitality from being sucked away by anyone near who has the vampire tendency. So there's a particular method for creating this shell, and it's also important to not sustain it for long periods of time, which comes up in a moment here. With a little further effort, a shell may be made impervious also to astral or mental influence. Shields and shells. There are certain circumstances in which it is both permissible and desirable to form either a shell or a shield of etheric matter to protect oneself or other people from unpleasant influences of various kinds. For example, in a mixed crowd, there's quite likely to be present some physical magnetism, distasteful, if not positively injurious, to a student of occultism. Some persons also, being themselves low in vitality, have the faculty, usually unconscious, of depleting others in their vicinity of their stores of prana. Provided these vampire-like people took from others only those etheric particles which are normally expelled from the body as not needed, no harm would be done. But often the suction is so intense that the whole circulation of prana in the victim is hastened, the rose-colored particles also being drawn out of the system before their pranic content has been assimilated by their owner. So it's like you're just about to get some food and somebody else grabs it and eats it, and you don't get any of the benefits from it. A capable vampire can thus drain a person of all his strength in a few minutes. It's important to note, however, that an etheric shell, which keeps out etheric matter, will also keep it in, and that therefore one's own etheric emanations, many of which are poisonous, will be kept within the shell. So if you consciously create a shell before you go out shopping or go to a restaurant or something like that, it's important that when you get home or on the way home, once you're on your own again, you undo the shell, you break it, and resume your normal energetic self, let's say. Kundalini. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Mary. How are you supposed to make the shell?
There's probably various ways, but the one I am aware of is that you just visualize like a shell of white light around you, and just ask it to remain until you're done what you're done doing. If what can happen though, like say you go to the grocery store and you've got your shell around you and you meet someone that you know who's a good friend, you start talking, that shell will start opening up. It'll because you're in friendly company. So if that happens and you're aware, then you got to zip it up again, after you're done your conversation. And then when you get home, you just visualize it just dispersing and you're not in the bubble anymore. Now, there may be other ones that I'm sure there's other versions that I don't know about, but that's the one I'm aware of. And it works for me. So,
Thank you.
okay. Okay, before Kundalini is aroused, it is absolutely essential that a definite stage of moral purity be reached, and also that the will be strong enough to control the force. Some of the dangers connected with the serpent fire are purely physical. Its uncontrolled movement often produces intense physical pain, and it may readily tear tissues and even destroy physical life. It may also do permanent injury to vehicles higher than the physical. So it's referring to the emotional, mental, and spiritual body. The occultists who understand from firsthand knowledge are always exceedingly careful to give no clue to the order in which the serpent fire should be passed through the centers. And unfortunately, they try to use the veiled methods that have been printed in books and cause a lot of problems to people who try to wake up their Kundalini. The reason for this is on account of the very serious dangers, the gravity of which can scarcely be exaggerated, awaiting those who arouse Kundalini accidentally or prematurely. The most solemn warnings are uttered against attempting anything of the kind until the time is fully ripe, and unless under the guidance of a master or an experienced occultist. Kundalini of the electric fluid with the nerve force moves about 90 feet per second. Kundalini of the cosmic plane moves 115,000 leagues a second, and a league is approximately 3 feet. So, as I understand it, the 90 feet per second is what the normal fluid is in us. And that once it's fully released, then it's going at this 115,000 a second, which is the reason why it's so destructive to the many bodies. The atomic web. We have already seen that there is a very close connection between the chakras in the astral body and those in the etheric double. Between these two sets of centers and interpenetrating them in a manner not easy to describe, there is a web or a sheath, and it's composed of a single layer of physical atoms, closely woven, much compressed, and permeated with a special variety of prana. The prana, which normally comes from the astral into the physical, is such that it can pass with perfect ease through the atomic shield. But the latter is an absolute barrier to all other forces which cannot use the atomic matter of both planes. And this is a protective shield. The shield is thus a protection provided by nature to provide premature opening up of the communication between the astral and physical planes. Were it not for this wise provision, all kinds of astral experiences might pour into the physical consciousness, where, in the case of most men, they could be productive of nothing but harm. So in our illustration here, this is the veil, this is the sheath, astral center, etheric center. And I've watched a few programs where, you have children who are born with psychic abilities and they have a very, very hard time managing what they're exposed to. There can be a lot of negative, almost violent type beings that they can see or feel or hear, and it terrorizes them. And it suggests that this veil here, this sheath, is broken. It's open and allows this to happen. So why is it happening to young people? And the explanation I have encountered in my research is that it's often a karmic result. So that person, or not that person, but that well, I'll say person for lack of anything better. In another life, that person maybe played around with black magic or tried to open up their clairvoyance or some kinds of abilities before they were evolutionary ready. Their evolution wasn't ready for this yet, and they pushed it through anyway and experienced whatever they experienced in that life, but you can't undo it, as I understand. So when they come into this life, they arrive with it open. And so, if they don't have the help of an experienced occultist or a highly trained clairvoyant to help them through these years, they can have a really hard time, even commit suicide if it's that bad. But anyway. At any moment, an astral entity might introduce forces which ordinary man would be quite unprepared to meet, and which would be entirely beyond his strength to cope with. A man would be liable to obsession by any astral entity who desired to seize his vehicle. The atomic shield thus serves as an effective safeguard against these undesirable happenings. It also serves under normal conditions to prevent clear recollection of the sleep life from reaching the physical brain consciousness. And it accounts for the momentary unconsciousness which also occurs at death. Occasionally, the returning astral body succeeds in making a momentary impression on the etheric double and dense body, so that when the latter awake, there is a touch of vivid memory. This usually quickly vanishes, effort to recall it rendering success more impossible, as each effort sets up physical brain vibrations, which tend to overpower the subtler astral vibrations. I'm sure we've all experienced this. You first start waking up and the dream is so clear, And then the more you wake up, the more it fades. It can be frustrating at times. As the consciousness of the ordinary man cannot normally use atomic matter, either physical or astral, there is normally no possibility of conscious communication between the two planes. As, however, he purifies his vehicles, he becomes able to function in the atomic matter and then is able to carry his consciousness along a direct road from one atomic level to another. In this case, the atomic web fully retains its position and activity, permitting the consciousness to pass from one plane to another, while at the same time fulfilling its purpose of preventing close contact with those lower subplanes from which many kinds of undesirable influences are liable to come. The only safe way, therefore, for genuine students of occultism to not force in any way the development of psychic powers, but to wait for these to unfold, as they will unfold in the normal course of evolution. By this way, all the benefits will be obtained and the dangers avoided. It will now be useful to study the etheric double in its connection with the birth and death of the physical body. In birth, the etheric double is actually built in advance for the incoming ego by an elemental, which is the joint thought form of the four Deva Rajas, each of whom presides over one of the four etheric subplanes of the physical matter. So a Deva for the mental, emotional, etheric, and physical body work together to build this body. The primary business of this building elemental is to construct the etheric mold into which the physical particles of the new baby body are to be built. At first, it accurately expresses in shape and size the infant body it has to build. Clairvoyants sometimes see this doll-like figure hovering about and afterwards within the body of the mother, and have occasionally mistaken it for the soul of the coming baby instead of the mold of its physical body. As soon as the fetus has grown to the size of the mold and is ready for birth, the form of the next stage at which it has to aim is unfolded. The size, shape, and condition of the body as it is to be at the time when the elemental proposes to leave it. After the elemental has retired, all further growth of the body is under the control of the ego himself. So that's when there's the introduction of karma and skandhas and that type of thing. In determining the quality of the etheric matter to be used in building the etheric body, we have two things to consider. First, the type of matter regarded from the point of view of the seven rays, and secondly, the quality of matter regarded from the point of view of its coarseness and fineness. And all this is from past lives and the karma we bring forward. The seven rays in general are will, wisdom, creative ideation, harmony, mentality, devotion, and grace. And it's one of these will be dominant through the life. We have all of these rays, but one will be dominant. And I'm not sure, I seem to recall having read that one of these is for all the lives in a Manvantara, but I'm not, something in me says that maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Do any of you know about that or have a comment about that? Okay, I'll carry on then. We'll just leave it out there. The elemental consists of that portion of the karma of the individual, which is to express itself in the physical body. On the selection made by the building elemental depends, for example, whether the body will be naturally clever or stupid, a word we wouldn't use these days, placid or irritable, energetic or lethargic, sensitive or unresponsive. The potentialities of heredity are latent in the maternal ovum and the paternal spermatozoon. And from these, the elemental makes its selection according to the requirements of the case. So here you can see the combination of the hereditary and the karmic and the skandhas all forming together. Etheric matter for the infant body is taken from the body of the mother, hence the importance of the latter supplying her body with only the purest materials. Unless the elemental is charged with some special development in the way of features, such as an unusual beauty or the reverse, the principal agency at work in this direction will be the thoughts of the mother and the thought forms which float around her. The new astral body comes into connection with the etheric double at a very early age and exercises considerable influence over its formation, the mental body also working through it upon the nervous organization. And then at death. At death, the etheric double withdraws from the dense body and may be seen as a violet mist gradually condensing into a figure, which is the counterpart of the expiring person and attached to the dense body by a glistening thread or the silver cord. This thread or magnetic cord is snapped at the moment of death. The withdrawal of the etheric double, and with it, of course, prana, destroys the integral unity of the physical body, thus leaving it merely as a collection of independent cells. The life of the separate cells continues as evidenced by the well-known fact that hairs on a corpse will sometimes continue to grow. The moment the etheric double withdraws and consequently prana ceases to circulate, the lower lives, i.e. the cells, run rampant and begin to break down the hitherto definitely organized body. The body is thus never more alive than when it is dead, but it is alive in its units and dead in its totality. So as we know, when someone passes, the body starts to fall apart, but it all becomes disorganized and that's part of this process. And prana is no longer there to hold it together, organized. When the double finally quits the dense body, it does not go far away, but usually floats over it. In this condition, it is known as the wraith, and sometimes appears to those with whom it is closely bound up as a cloudy figure, but dully conscious and speechless. Unless undisturbed by tumultuous distress or violent emotion, and that's referring to people who are there with the person when they die, and if they're reacting strongly with wailing and a lot of emotional distress, it can interfere with this stage of the postmortem process. So unless disturbed, the state of consciousness is dreamy and peaceful. It is during the withdrawal of the double, as well as afterwards, that the whole of the man's life passes swiftly in review before the ego. Every forgotten nook and corner of the memory yielding up its secrets, picture by picture, event by event. In these few seconds, the ego lives over again his whole life, seeing his successes and failures, loves and hatreds. He perceives the predominant tendency of the whole, and ruling thought of the life asserts itself, marking the region in which the chief part of the post-mortem life will be spent. So the quality of the death, shall we say, affects the first stage in the post-mortem life in the astral. This stage is usually followed by a brief period of peaceful unconsciousness due to the withdrawal of the etheric matter and its entanglement with the astral body, thus preventing the man from functioning either in the physical or the astral world. This makes me think of I watch all kinds of esoteric programs and stuff because I'm so interested in it. And um, like sometimes there'll be a situation where the person is deceased and trapped and not can't can't access the physical world because they're past, but also cannot move forward in the astral world. And they're just stuck and they may not be able to um, perceive that help is coming from the astral side because some, the invisible helpers may be trying to help them move forward and they're just not responsive. And this situation just has to wear out before they can move on. Not pleasant at all. Some men shake themselves free from the etheric envelope in a few moments. Others rest within it for hours, days, or even weeks, though usually the process does not take longer than a few hours. As the days pass, the higher principles gradually disengage themselves from the double, and the latter then becomes in its turn an etheric corpse, which remains near the dense one, both disintegrating together. If the body isn't cremated, this is what happens. If it's cremated, the etheric body dissolves pretty much right away. Where did I leave off? These etheric wraiths are often seen in churchyards, sometimes as violet or bluish white mists or lights, but often presenting an unpleasant appearance as they pass through various stages of decomposition. One of the great advantages of cremation is that by destroying the dense body, the etheric body also loses its place to function and so rapidly disintegrates. In the case of people who cling desperately to physical existence, the astral body cannot altogether separate from the etheric, and they awaken still surrounded by etheric matter. The condition is very unpleasant, as such a person would be shut out from the astral world by the shell of the etheric matter, and at the same time, the loss of physical sense organs prevents him from coming fully in touch with earth life. This is what I was mentioning earlier. Consequently, he drifts about, lonely and dumb and terrified, in a thick and gloomy fog, unable to hold intercourse with either plane. In process of time, the etheric shell wears out, in spite of his struggles, though usually not until after he has suffered intensely. Kindly people among the dead and others endeavor to help the class of person described, but seldom with success. And lastly, healing. We have already seen that a man in vigorous health is continually throwing off from his body vital emanations which may be absorbed by others. In this way, the latter will be strengthened and minor illnesses may be cured, or at least recovery expedited. As, however, the currents of prana are amenable to the will, it is possible for a man consciously to direct the streams of vitality which pour out of him, as well as greatly to augment their natural flow. By directing the currents onto a patient who is depleted of strength, owing to the fact that his spleen is not doing its work properly, considerable help towards recovery may be given. The additional vitality poured in by the healer, keeping the patient's bodily machinery working until it is sufficiently recovered to manufacture supplies of prana itself. The student will readily recognize the desirability of the healer being himself perfectly healthy, because otherwise he's liable to pour into the patient some of his own unhealthy magnetism. Nearly all nerve troubles, for example, are the direct result of unnecessary worry and emotion, and would soon disappear if the patient could be taught to hold his vehicle still and peaceful. Mesmerism. The essence of mesmerism is that the operator drives out or forces back the patient's own magnetism or vital fluid and replaces it with his own fluid. The natural effect of this is that the patient loses all power of feeling in that portion of his body from which his own fluid has been expelled. We have previously seen that the power of feeling depends on the transmission of the contacts to the astral centers through the matter of the etheric double. When, therefore, the etheric matter is removed, the connection between the dense physical body and the astral body is broken, and consequently, there can be no sensation experienced. The withdrawal of the vital fluid does not in any way interfere with the circulation of the blood, for the portion of the body concerned remains warm. It is thus possible to drive out a patient's own etheric matter from, say, an arm or a leg, so that complete anesthesia in the limb results. The mesmeric process being in such a case purely local, just like local anesthetic, the patient will retain full normal consciousness in the brain. All that happens is that a local anesthetic has been applied to the limb concerned. Under such mesmeric anesthetic, surgical operations, both major and minor, have been performed. It is obviously eminently desirable that a mesmerist should be physically healthy. For a healer or magnetizer pours into the patient not only prana, but also his own emanations. And in this way, it is possible for the operator to convey physical disease to the subject. Further, as astral and mental matter are also thrown into the subject, moral and mental diseases may likewise be transferred. Mesmerism purely for curative purposes by those who understand what they are doing and can be trusted not to abuse their powers has much to be said for it. But mesmerism for other purposes is distinctly not advisable. And that is what I wanted to share with you from Powell's book. And please forgive my limitations on some of the knowledge. Like I said, I just worked purely from that book. So are there comments or questions? Wow, we're done early.
I have a comment.
Yes,
I
Sharon.
I remember during my energetic trainings, classes that I took, one of them was the mesmer effect.
Mhm.
And basically all we did was that, just what you said. We just hold the energy for I think it was like a long time. It was like 15 minutes or something. And that's all we did. We didn't do any other work or nothing. We just energized whatever field that was. You just told them, I forget. And held one hand on the person and one, I can't remember where we put ours. There was only one hand on that person though. And I think the other one was, I don't remember. I'd have to look in my notes. I cannot remember. But it was one long training session that we took. It was what you're saying is exactly what we were taught and trained to do.
Did you have to do a purification before you do a treatment like that?
Oh yes, definitely. Always, 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 always. Yeah. And then also releasing the
After.
releasing it between
Yeah.
the patient and us. Yeah.
Did you ever experience any ill effects from doing the work?
No, no, never. And you set yourself up for that protection that you're talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You always do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of the energy healing, you don't really use your own prana. You're a
Channel.
pathway for the universal prana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Deborah?
Yeah, I sent a message to Jennifer, so I just wanted to let her know that, just to get caught up with what you and I were trying to work on, that Mary. But my question was, it said at one point that at death, the connection is immediately severed. And so I was wondering, in near-death experiences, what's happened? Has there a real death not taken place, or is there some other mechanism at play? Thank you.
I
Yeah.
don't quite understand your question. Um,
Yeah, the connection is not broken between the etheric sheath and the body during near-death experience.
right.
So the death in those instances would not be a true death then. It would just be a partial death.
Well, that's why they call it a near death. Like they go through, it's like they put their toe outside the door. Oh, it's too cold.
Ah,
Come back. So,
okay. Thank you.
yeah.
To your earlier comment, Mary, about the incarnating ego and how its bodies are made up,
Mm-hmm.
and the vibrational level of the parents and their intention mattering in the process of creating life. It's something that I remember my parents talking about, who were members of the Theosophical Society's Esoteric Society, and how important it is for parents to be, before they've even entered on the path of trying to conceive, to have the cleanest possible physical bodies. And that's in terms of the Esoteric Society's requirements: avoiding alcohol, avoiding meat consumption, avoiding debasing influences in terms of what you expose yourself to, the type of music, the type of people,
Mm-hmm.
environment. And that then, when embarking upon the actual act of sex to create new life as the end goal, to pray and try to pray to approach it with intention, to have the highest possible spiritual energy informing the process,
Mm-hmm.
which is not typically, I think, what people
None of it.
are prone to doing.
Is it any wonder the way the world is? But again, we were produced, probably with none of that. Well, I'll speak for myself. I don't know what was going on. My parents, but my parents were abstainers, so at least I had that. But but other things. But when I got pregnant, I immediately, in the moment, I knew, baby girl, blonde. I just knew that. And so I had that in mind all the way. And that's what I got. So whether that, yeah, there's a bit of blonde on both sides, but more dark haired like me as on both sides of the family. But, anyway. So, you try to, I don't know about you, but when I read Theosophy, I always try to relate it to things I've experienced or things I do or things I want to do or things I know other people have experienced and try to look at it that way. So that's why I share the personal experiences in these webinars, just so they're not just information, it's not just intellect, coming from the people who wrote the books, but it's personalized. So.
Are there any other questions before we wrap up? Avale, you had your finger up. Was that? Oh, no. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mary, for another most informative presentation, especially when the subject matter is something that is so integral to our day-to-day functioning on the physical plane. We probably don't give it much thought. It's certainly helpful to be reminded of how important the etheric double is in acting as an intermediary between our physical body and what it experiences and the higher planes. So that's been extremely helpful. Thank you very much.
No, you're very welcome. And that's the very reason why I wanted to share it, is because it's such a part of everyday life, and we either don't know about it or are very unfamiliar with it. So, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Great to see you and really appreciate your participation today. So thank you. And we'll see you at the next one, hopefully.
Just wanted to remind everyone that the video of this session will be posted in a few days on the CTA YouTube channel, and members will receive a link to it in the next newsletter if there's anything you'd like to go over and reflect on in greater depth. So
Yeah.
Thanks again, Mary.
You're very welcome. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.